the next verse, I'm going to try not to spend a lot of time on, but it's really hitting me this Ramadan. وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ لِزَكَاةِ فَاعِلُونَ. And it's heavy for me because it's really heavy for me. I've been asking scholars about the way that Muslims in our community are paying zakat, and for 1400 years, our rules of zakat were very clear about who they go to and what does zakat not actually go to. We have the fatwa from the madhahib. We have clarity on the issue of zakat, and in the last century, our understanding of what zakat goes to has I want to say become more confused, and I've been double checking and triple checking and quadruple checking with scholars that I respect, because I feel like this is like we're blowing it as an ummah in America. We're blowing it as an ummah, and I know that's a heavy thing to say on a Celebrate Mercy broadcast, but this is a really big deal. This is not something. Zakat is the haqq of the poor. We're not doing something extra. We are not, yes, you do get a good deed. You get the good deed of fulfilling an obligation, but you're not. This is not sadaqah. Sadaqah is there's no sin if you don't pay sadaqah, which is extra charity, and you get rewarded for paying it. Zakat is an obligation. It is not a choice. The person who keeps the money and doesn't pay zakat, they are essentially like eating the haqq, or the right of the poor people. That zakat is actually, it's their right. It's their money. It's their wealth that is mixed into their wealth. So they're actually consuming the wealth of the poor. And I know this is going to be controversial, and it shouldn't be actually, because over 1,000 years of Islamic history should not be controversial. When did we say that it was okay for us to use zakat to pay for the building of buildings instead of putting it into the hands of the poor people who deserve it? When did we say it was okay to pay zakat for a dawah organization that does dawah instead of, again, putting it into the hands of the poor people who deserve it? When did we say it was okay for us to pay zakat for a multi-million-dollar masjid project with chandeliers that are $10,000 and mimbars that are made of wooden carvings that are so beautiful that you could get lost staring at it? When did we say that zakat money, which is the haqq of the poor, when did we say that it was okay for us to build buildings for the rich and the wealthy and the 1% with zakat money? Right? When did that become okay? And yes, I understand there's fatwa, but these are new fatwa. And it's not like Muslims were not minorities in other lands for hundreds and hundreds of years before the 21st century. And so when we think about a lot of the community institutions, and we think about organizations, and we think about, why is there so much dysfunction? Why is there so much infighting? Why do people not get along in it? Why do boards keep breaking down and changing, and there's so much fitna in something that's supposed to be an Islamic organization? It's eating the haqq of the poor. Okay, if that is an organization that is taking zakat money, how can you expect there to be blessing and barakah in your organization when you took the right of the poor and you ate it? No, building a mosque for the rich is not one of the valid usages of zakat. Right? Paying for pamphlets and books and things like that, even for a dawah organization, is not a valid usage of zakat. The purpose of zakat is to help poor people and to help get them to a point where they can stand on their own 2 feet and no longer need zakat. That's the actual purpose of zakat, is to make it so that they no longer need. And so I'm really feeling heavy about this issue of zakat, because then I work with the Majlis. Majlis is nonprofit organization, and people constantly ask us, do you guys take zakat money? And I never understood why everyone was asking us, why do you take zakat money? And I'd say, no, of course we don't take zakat money. And they'd be very shocked and surprised, why am I saying that we don't take zakat money? And then I realized everyone else is taking zakat money. And so that's a huge, this is a North American problem. May Allah help us to rectify this. And the other thing that comes to mind is we cannot, the only way of donating should not be zakat, right? So the person who's like, I only want to give my zakat and I don't want to give a penny more. Okay, so if that's the way that person is, then it needs to go directly to who it actually belongs to. Okay, that's who it needs to actually go to. But there is another problem, which is if someone, for example, has $10,000 of zakat money, and they own and because they prefer that their wealth goes to expand a musalla in their area, to make a bigger mosque, and so they want to use a fatwa that allows that, because then they can have a nicer place to pray for themselves, right? The question to ask is, if you have $10,000 to pay in zakat, you have $10,000 to pay in sadaqah for the same exact cause. So I'm not saying people should not support masajid, buildings, structures. I'm saying give your zakat to who it belongs to, and those other causes that you believe in, you can give the exact same amount. You can afford it. If you can give that amount in zakat, then you absolutely can afford to give that exact same amount in sadaqah to the same causes that you're concerned about. But separate it, let it be clean. We need to be a people who do not eat the wealth of the poor. And there's a lot of causes right now that are going on. We're exposed to it. There's what's happening in Afghanistan. There's what's happening locally in local communities with Muslim families who need zakat. There's refugees that are coming in. There's Muslims who just are not able to even pay their rent. There's the actual people who need zakat. This is, we need to focus on who they are. And we need to redirect our funding to them, our zakat spending only on the people it actually belongs to. Otherwise, we're eating their wealth. It's, I want everyone to really feel the gravity of this. A masjid can be eating the wealth of the poor. Okay. A Muslim organization doing wonderful work can be eating the wealth of the poor. We have to rectify this. We have to make tawbah first and foremost, and then we have to rectify it, because this is not, this may be a huge reason why we are afflicted in certain ways. When our wealth is mixed with something haram, it does have an effect on everything. And so forgive me for getting on that soapbox. I feel very heavily about it. If you see images of a lot of the people who need zakat money, and how a lot of the fundraising for these causes are not doing so well, but the fundraising that's using zakat money for buildings and structures is doing very well, it's very concerning, because this is the month of Ramadan, and this money it's an amana. And it actually comes up in the verse, the people who from their li'amanatihim wa ahdihim ra'un, right? Verse number 8, those who faithfully observe their trusts and their covenants, right? So zakat is a trust. It's a trust. That wealth that is given to us from Allah is a trust. And that portion of the wealth that has to go to the people who are actually eligible to zakat, that's a trust from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm going to pause because I want to let Ustadha Hosai weigh in and save me because I could go on and on. So please.
I want you to go on and on. No, what a powerful and so relevant and really, really, really wonderful messages. We all needed to hear this, because we've been negligent, and you just touched upon something that I think is not really spoken about very much, but it's definitely an issue. And I mean, just looking at the comments, I've been watching, everybody's so happy that you're addressing it, because we all have seen the effects of mismanagement of funds whether personally knowing people who've been unfortunately not able to receive zakat funds because there weren't any. But then, like you said, you see these flourishing structures and other buildings and organizations, and you're thinking like, how is this happening? How do we have whole families who are still food insecure or still have this problem or that problem, but yet we have an abundance of wealth and we are one of the wealthiest communities in the country? So I think you're just spot on, Jazakallah khairan. And as you were mentioning, this idea of buildings, I started kind of thinking like, what would possess a person to want to contribute their money towards a cause like that, but maybe be a little bit more hesitant to give to a relief organization or an organization that they knew directly was impacting, the poor or the needy. And I think a part of me just immediately thought it has to be our, just because of the modern world, we're in this world of wanting kind of, something tangible or something that we can attach ourselves to, right? So a building with a name or a placard or a, waqf or some sort of thing that we can also have a part of, right? Like we have a stake in it, has some sort of permanence in our mind. Of course, this is a material permanence, but I think that appeals to people because they feel like, well, had I not given that $10,000 to this masjid, I wouldn't have even been here. So I feel like there's a definite ego drive there when it comes to some of our donations. And when you look at giving to the poor, and you're entrusting these organizations that are going to distribute your wealth, and you have absolutely no way of having any connection to what that wealth, the impact of that wealth, right? We're just giving for the sake of Allah, and it's like a blind offer. Here's the money, do with it what you will. That doesn't seem to have permanence maybe for people because there's nothing to gloat about maybe later. Like, oh, I you know what I mean? Like, I feel like there's definitely an ego driven, we have to kind of unpack these things, right? So I appreciate what you shared because it should give all of us pause to think about where we, how we, the intentionality behind what we do with our wealth. And this very, very powerful reminder that we could very well be incurring the wrath of God. It's wow. Like, you're thinking you're doing good. What a delusional state, right? Because you're actually contributing to the harm of others. So in fact, there could be a blowback that you don't even know which direction or how or when. So I think it's a really wonderful reminder. Jazakallah khairan.